on this idea of entrepreneurship as a method of, or as a type of solution, does that link into what people could do to prepare for Boomergeddon?
Well, in a sense, because entrepreneurs are self-reliant and self-dependent, and I think the American people have to be self-reliant and self-dependent, independent. And basically, we've gotten to a point where people have to ask themselves, do you trust the promises made by the American government to continue funding the social safety net? And obviously, everyone in government wants to continue funding the social safety net because no one wants to meet the wrath of the voters at the polls when they fail. But once we go into the catastrophic collapse of Boomergeddon and the government can no longer spend any more than what it brings in through taxes, it's going to have to make massive cuts across the board. And that's going to include Medicare, and it's going to include Social Security, and it's going to include everything. And so people who are counting on, and you read the surveys of the opinion surveys, and there's a lot of them. So people who are counting on the government to be there and provide that social safety net for them when they retire are going to be very, very disappointed. Now, some people go too far. They say, I'm not counting on Medicare or Social Security at all. I just figure it'll just collapse and it'll all be all gone. No, something is going to survive. It will just be radically truncated. It'll be far short of what you've been promised. And there will probably also be more means testing because, let's face it, nobody wants to see, old people dying, shivering in the cold and from lack of food in their little one-room apartments. I mean, so we don't want people dying. So we're inevitably what's going to happen is that Social Security and Medicare are going to be more and more means tested, and to preserve the safety net for the poor. But that means is everybody who's worked all their lives and played by the rules and saved their money and saved for retirement is going to find, oh well, guess what? You're hosed because you're so well off. You're going to get less. You're going to get less Social Security and Medicare benefits. So everyone is going to be hosed. But still, it's better to go ahead and make those sacrifices to save up the money and build up that nest egg and create that self-sufficiency because no one knows how the government is going to react or how they're going to respond or what they're going to do when we reach Boomergeddon. So, you want to you just want to take it out of their hands and put it in your own hands and prepare for your own future. And if the government, gives you some, allows you some Social Security and Medicare benefits, okay, then you're better off than if they didn't. But you just can't. It's unknowable. We're transitioning from an era of great predictability, in which you can go decades at a time and plan decades ahead, and with reasonable assurances that your projections are going to be pretty well true, to a period of great discontinuity, in which no one knows or can possibly predict what's really going to happen. So you want to protect yourself.
And do you think that people are protecting themselves? Because I know that in my line of work, I find it's generally the case that people are living very close to the edge, very, very close to the edge, and have very little protection of their income. And if they do not have any protection of their income, a simple medical issue could put them out of commission pretty much. And
Right. Yeah, the Center for Retirement Research at Boston University has done some really, really great work in analyzing how many, particularly members of the Boomer generation and Gen X generation, are prepared for retirement. And I can't remember the exact numbers, and I'm probably wrong, but it's like 2/3 of them are not prepared. And by that means that they won't have enough money to maintain a standard of living, income equal to 80% of the pre-retirement income. And one of the big things that people totally underestimate is the potential cost of health care. They also underestimate the risk of long-term care. So there's going to be a lot of miserable people out there. And people have not prepared. They just the boomers particularly just kind of live for today. And, if it feels good, do it, man. And Uncle Sam will take care of me if worse comes to worse. So.
And then,
so you're young. You're part of the responsible generation. I mean, all the surveys I've seen is that the millennials, their attitude is, well, we don't know what's going to happen with Medicare and Social Security and Social Safety Net, so we're prepared to take care of ourselves. Now, whether they have the actual discipline to do the savings, I don't know. But at least kind of psychologically, they're prepared. The boomers are totally unprepared.
And then you're saying, because I've spoken to, for example, I spoke with a gentleman named Matt Allen, and he's the director of IRA lending for North American Savings Bank. And he's not preparing, well, he doesn't expect Social Security to be there. He's one of these people who you were saying maybe take it a bit too far, and are kind of saying, I don't really expect it to be there. It's not going to be there. I'm just doing my own due diligence and worrying about myself. And, why do you think that it is going to be there?
Well, because it has a dedicated funding flow. It's called the payroll tax. So everybody gets X amount of dollars taken out of their paycheck. And I think the calculations are that even if the trust fund, the Social Security trust fund, runs out, and the federal government can't step in to make up the difference, we'd still pay out, I think it's 60% of the revenue. Maybe it's higher. Maybe it's 60, maybe, I can't remember the exact number, but it's in the order of 60, 80%. We'd still pay out most of the benefits. Now, if you're living on Social Security and they told you, oh, guess what, we're sorry, we're cutting your benefits by 30%, you wouldn't feel real good about it. But at least you have something. Okay, so, and that's a dedicated payment flow. I mean, it would take practically, not just an act of Congress. I mean, it would be taking something phenomenal in order to take that money away from retirees and say, oh, we want to spend that on the rest of the federal government. So there's always going to be some Social Security money coming available to support the program. It just won't be as much as people need.
Right. And does that then fall on my generation to support the people and fill that gap?
Well, okay, now we can talk about Social Security reform, which is really a very different issue than reforming the rest of the government, because for all its problems, Social Security is probably more actuarially sound than any other part of the federal government. I mean, the funding shortfall is smaller and more easily corrected than it is just about anywhere else. All we need to do is do some tweaks. I mean, if we kind of raise the retirement age for young people. Well, look, young people are going to live. Say you're 30 years younger than me. You probably live at least 3 years longer than I will. Your expected life expectancy is 3 years longer than mine is. So it's like, okay, well, it's not too unreasonable to ask you to work a couple years longer.
Right.
Okay. So that's one thing you do is you solve half your problem by raising the retirement age. And then you can recalculate how you calculate Social Security cost of living adjustments. And so there's different ways of doing it, and they're all legitimate. Some are more advantageous and some are less advantageous to the retirees, but you adopt a different method for calculating cost of living, and maybe you lose a 0.1% a year or 0.2% a year that cost of living raise you're not getting. But you add that up over 20 or 30, 40 years, and you significantly improve the actuarial soundness of Social Security. So then the other thing that will probably happen is you can probably raise the Social Security contributions of the wealthy, and so you can tweak it here, tweak it there, without really harming anyone. You're not totally screwing some group over.
Right.
Everyone's sharing the pain a little bit,
right.
And you can fix it. So, and my argument is, if our Congress can't fix Social Security, You can't fix anything because Social Security is the easiest piece of the puzzle to fix.